Do I trust Russell Brand? No, not really. He's Hollywood. He's a far leftist. However, recently, he's sort of going down the Joe Rogan path, meaning that he's asking basic questions that we all know and we all have the answer for, especially if you're on the right side of the political spectrum. He's really not taking a side. He's just, questioning things. And since this video is going on YouTube, I can't exactly talk about what he's been talking about. Because, well, it's YouTube, and instead of promoting talk amongst people about different ideas and subjects, we can't talk about that because we can only reference certain things, approve narratives according to YouTube. That's fine with them. They have no problem doing that because they're a far leftist organization, corporation, etc. However, knowing now that the news media and the pundits are attacking Russell Brand for being right-wing, he ain't right-wing, that gives me just a little bit of pause. Because with this Breitbart article, it says Russell Brand, mainstream media, government, big business operating in unison to benefit themselves and disadvantage you. Yeah. I agree. If Russell Brand said that, which I think he did, I 100% agree. Matter of fact, I rail against this shit constantly. But I just don't trust him. Even though he's over the target right now, receiving flack from the mainstream media and all their corporate pundits and shit like that, he's taking a lot of flack. But why? I thought he was a darling of the left. Well, as we all know, if you happen to, say, stray from the colony, they sort of close the door behind you. And I think that's what we see here. He can always bend the knee and go back, but I don't know. Maybe he won't. I've only seen a couple of his videos, and I just don't trust him. He's a far leftist. He's Hollywood. And he's also British. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying I just don't necessarily trust him. But he has taken flack from the right people. It says the establishment and the mainstream media are coming for me and coming for this channel, saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, a right-wing nut. This, Brand said in a recent video. If you don't think I'm those things, and I don't think that I'm these things, could there be any reason why the mainstream media and establishment want to shut down open discourse and dissent? He does sound pretty pragmatic, doesn't he? But yes, that's a good fucking question. Let me read it again because it makes a lot of sense if you're coming to the conclusion that these big businesses and government wants to stifle dissent, wants to stifle you what you say, tell you what you can and can't say. If you don't think that I'm these things, I don't think I'm these things. Could there be any other reason why the mainstream media and establishment want to shut down open discourse and dissent? That's a rhetorical question. I think Russell Brand knows by now that, well, when you shut down open discourse and dissent, you basically only produce one narrative and people have to either swallow it or not talk about it. Case in point, when I got yeeted for 7 days on YouTube, I didn't talk about whatever they thought I talked about. All I did was say, hey, this guy said this. I'm not necessarily agreeing with it, but he just said it. No, I can't have that. No, I can't have that. Why? I'm just talking. I'm not even coming to any conclusions. Nope. You see, on big tech, there's only one narrative, and it's their narrative, and it changes by the fucking hour. So you don't know what they really think. Well, you can come to a conclusion, but then you're going to be wrong 5 seconds later when they fucking change the terms of service. So how the fuck are you supposed to navigate this fucking dense forest? It's hard. Brand addressed the establishment press, calling them the new Joe Rogan. Last week, two major British newspapers likened forgetting Sarah Marshall star and comedian turned YouTube commentator to American comedian and podcaster Joe Rogan. Now, on the other side of the Atlantic, Brand finds itself under attack from similar reasons. The initial articles have been provoked by video we did about Justin Trudeau, saying that his invocation of the Emergency Act and refusal to rescind it entirely in case of certain financial components against peaceful trucker protests smacks of the kind of authoritarianism that might diminish his right to overtly condemn anti-democratic actions elsewhere. That's what we said, Brand said. We've been accused of being simply for saying that right here might have rights. And they do. People have rights, and it doesn't matter. Even criminals have rights. That's a tenet of our Constitution. You have rights. Well, you don't have rights when the government deems you a pesky citizen. And he goes on to say, what I said is that perhaps people are reluctant to become this, shouldn't be treated as criminals, condemned and treated as social pariahs. They shouldn't. It's a personal decision. However, a personal decision under the eyes of big tech, namely YouTube and Google and Alphabet. No. There's only one narrative. Either you believe what we believe, or we find a way to deperson you off the fucking planet. Prove I'm wrong. The comedian went on to declare, the mainstream media is not your friend. The culture is not your friend. The government is not your friend. Big business is not your friend. They are operating collegiately in unison to create a set of systems that are beneficial to them and disadvantage you. Wow, he sounds like me, doesn't it? He sounds like Salty Cracker, doesn't it? He sounds like Joe Rogan, doesn't it? He sounds like anybody on the right who dares challenge the narrative. He sounds pragmatic. He almost sounds right side of the political spectrum. Folks out there in the Lazo land, he's not. He could be. So in this instance, going on, I'm not trusting Russell Brand. I'm taking for what he says with a grain of salt. So if he says all this stuff, in which I agree, I go, okay, great. I agree with that. Let's see what other stuff he's starting to talk about. Maybe next time he'll say, I don't think anyone should have guns. I don't agree with him. However, I do agree with him on this. The issue here is that just because someone agrees with you on 10%, you need to look at the other 90% you don't agree with. You need to go through that data he has or she has and come to a conclusion. Should I keep trusting this person? Regardless of maybe I agree with this person 10% of the time, but that 90% of the time, it's a little concerning. To Brand's point, corporate media, mega corporations, and big tech conglomerates have all been on the receiving end of an avalanche of criticism in recent weeks over scandals that involve them defending Democrats or a liberal agenda. The elite press suffered the ultimate fake news humiliation last week with the co-founder of NewsGuard, the establishment news rating project that presents itself as a source of expert knowledge on which news sources can be trusted and which ones cannot, finding itself in an awkward situation where after initially labeling the Hunter Biden laptop story a Russian hoax. Well, we know that laptop has always been true, regardless of some gatekeepers in the big tech and big media decide to where, yes, trust us now. This is true. Fuck you. Fuck you. I knew it was true fucking a year ago. You don't have to fucking pee on me and tell me it's raining. Fuck you. The point of this channel is to have an open conversation, and much of what we do is about critiquing news, Brand said. We're looking at news and analyzing news. That's what we're doing, just to be clear. We're not claiming to do a news channel. So the idea of misinformation, this is opinion. Exactly. And I don't profess to be other than someone who looks at the news, reads the news, and gives my opinion out. This is my opinion. It's not set in stone. It may change. It may mold itself later on down the road. I'm not an expert, but what I do is I like to go through different data points, different sources, different news articles. I want to compare and contrast before I give my opinion out. And maybe sometimes my hot takes are bad. Just like I would suppose Russell Brand, same thing. He might give a wrong hot take. That's just him. That's just me. But to have a big tech conglomerates out there and fact checkers go through your stuff and go, well, your opinion sucks. this we don't like. Or they put those little banners, for YouTube and Twitter. They'll put these little banners saying, oh, this is a conspiracy theory, according to Wikipedia, which is, if you know anything about academia, you do not use Wikipedia as a fucking source for anything. At no point when I was in my master's degree program did I ever use Wikipedia as a fucking name source in any of my papers I wrote. That is fucking stupid. Even the left-wing professors I had, they said, do not use Wikipedia. You cannot trust it. More power to them. Message heard loud and clear. And I didn't. It's amazing that the gatekeepers, that's, I think, what pisses me off here in conclusion here. You got gatekeepers out there saying that what Russell Brand is saying is wrong. It's like, well, he's given his opinion. At no point did he say he was the arbiter of truth. At no point have I ever said I'm the arbiter of truth. Hopefully, I give you some things to think about, some things to give you pause, some things to maybe, critique or maybe mold your narrative that you have. Everyone's got a narrative. Everyone thinks their narrative is correct, just like big tech. But do I think Russell Brand is lying to us? No, he just has an opinion. Am I lying to you? No, I just have an opinion. Maybe you don't agree with it. Maybe you downvote. Maybe you upvote. Whatever. Good for you. Maybe you sub. Maybe you don't. Good for you. I am not forcing you to listen to what I've got to say. And just like Russell Brand is, he's not forcing anything that he says onto you. You have to actively click on his YouTube page to look at his stuff. Same thing with me. You have to actively search out my stuff and look for it. However, when you have big tech out there and big news organizations saying that don't trust Russell Brand, he's giving false information. It's like, what false information? He's giving out his opinion, just like I'm giving my opinion out. So, I guess in the end, maybe I don't trust Russell Brand as much as you would like me to, maybe, perhaps? Or I would like to trust him? He seems like a genuine guy, I guess. Even with his stupid fucking beads around his neck. And all that bullshit on his arms. Whatever. To each his own, more power to you. But I trust Russell Brand way more, and I trust myself way more, and I trust you out in the audience way more than I trust the scumbags in big tech. The scumbags in YouTube, and Google, and Alphabet, and Twitter, and Facebook, and all these big news media organizations. I trust them, well, 0 of the time. But I trust Russell Brand maybe a little more than I do big tech. Why? Because at this point, Russell Brand hasn't fucked me out of anything. He's just given his opinion. And when big tech and big organizations and corporations like this push their narrative and push their opinion on you, and you say, you must listen to us or else you can't use our product, then, well, you need to come to a conclusion. You really shouldn't trust big tech and big media and even government, because they're going to fuck you in the end. And you can take that to the motherfucking bank.